Okay, the Board of Education will now resume its April 18th, 2024 regular board meeting. Would everyone please rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Jessica, will you please take attendance of the student representatives?
Brandon,
Here.
Mario,
Here.
Aaliyah.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, any individual that is physically present at the meeting wishing to address the board must complete a comment card and provide it to Ms. Del Real. Any individual virtually attending the meeting wishing to address the board must complete the public comment form linked on the agenda prior to starting the public comment section of the meeting, and any written comments may be submitted via email. I see our favorite Sherry Klump here from the Park District. Thank you for joining us as always. Now the section that I will get into is the board communication. I will start with the NSSEO update. We had our meeting on the 3rd. Our shining stars this month were 2 students from Timber Ridge, and the looks on their faces, because both of these students are starting to transition back to their home schools. And the pride on their faces and their parents' faces was just the reason that I love going to those meetings so much. It's just so uplifting that these kids can see that they're learning to handle things better and get back to their home schools this time was in District 23 and 59. We also had the first meeting of the DEI committee. It's the first one since Dr. Schnorr's been on board. Wanted to give her some time to get used to things and all. The next steps we're working on, I am on the systems strand, and we're working on drafting a resolution to state that DEI is essential to us, and not just for the students, because with NSSEO, it's special ed. All students have got their IEPs, so they're getting the equity and the things that they need. We want to make sure that the staff and teachers and all of them are getting what they need as well. Also, at the end of May, we are starting the interviews for the first strategic plan that NSSEO has ever done. So we will be interviewing companies, and I will be reporting back on how those are going. So that'll be quite interesting. And finally, those of us that went to bingo, they brought in almost $20,000 in one evening for their foundation. It's just such a wonderful evening. We have so much fun, and that money will do so many things for those kids. So that's it for me. So next is EdRed. Bill.
Thank you, Debbie. As I was out of town for most of the past month, I do not have an EdRed report.
Okay, thank you. Next is IASB.
Well, although I don't have a report, so to speak, one quick update. The deadline for receipt of resolution proposals for the 2024 Delegate Assembly of the Joint Annual Conference is June 26th. So if any member wishes to have a resolution considered, it must be approved by our board by the June meeting. So if you're interested, that's your deadline.
Correct. Okay. Next is North Cook. Arlen?
So we just had our meeting. Here's our packet, in case you don't think we get a little reading at North Cook. Lots of exciting things happening. You all may recall that when I got on the board, the first 4 years were very, very tough financial times. Oh, I didn't move my mic on, I'm sorry. So the first 4 years were a struggle to even stay alive. That was after the state cut funding for the organizations across the state. But I'm happy to say now that our funds are in a very strong position. Our balances are good. We're hiring more people. I can tell you that our budget has gone from about $1 million when I first started. We're at $4 million in services going back to our school districts across the region. We've just hired in student services, we're up to 36 people. Of course, in the young adult organization, we're now servicing 41 students, which is our young adult academy. It's bursting at the seams. So in every area of North Cook, things are really booming. And our new superintendent will take her position, April Jordan, this summer. That's exciting. She's a tremendous program person and does a lot of great things for the organization. And the topper, in addition to the fact that we've gone from, in our NCYAA and ALOP programs, we're going to hit 1,000 students this year from 200 last year. So that's pretty significant growth. And we just were awarded a $675,000 grant from Cook County for the next, 2 years in the health services area. So it's a delight to be part of the organization today when things are going as well as they are. And I'm happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. How about the Wheeling Township 708 Board?
I have nothing to report there, but I'll just say that the last couple of weeks, many of us have been out in the buildings. I know that I've been at 3 or 4 schools, at jazz concert last night, the ice cream teacher event at McDonald's. Dagmara and I were at a couple of those the last week, and lots of great things happening in the buildings, and it's always fun to be out there with the teachers. Thank you.
Stacy, did you have anything from the 708 Board?
I do not.
No, there was nothing on the 7-8 board to
There's
report.
there's no
Okay.
vote on.
Now I'll go around for our governmental agencies. Bill, did you have anything else to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay, nothing. Arlen, anything else at all?
Well, I can only say that the Bears are up for grabs in Arlington Heights. That's the big topic today in Arlington Heights. Nobody knows where that's going, but other than that, the village is doing well.
Okay, thank you. Stacy?
Sure, we had our Wheeling Chamber of Commerce Board meeting this week. I want to extend my gratitude from Michael Putz, who's the executive director, will be hosting a manufacturing education event here Friday, April the 26th, growing your business, improving online visibility for the in a manufacturer's luncheon at 11:30. And I especially extend my thank you to you, Cass, and to Dr. Conley. It's been a wonderful partnership between the Chamber of Commerce and the district so far. The Park District is having their Earth Day event, which Juan talked about at our board meeting this coming Sunday, April 21st, from 11 to 1 to celebrate Earth Day with lots of fun activities. And there was a business after hours at Chevy Chase last night. It looks like Chevy Chase is ready for some golfers. So lots of good community events coming up. Markets are starting up both at Town Center and through the community, and lots of good events to get out and get involved.
Awesome, thank you.
That's all.
Phil, did you have anything?
Nothing new this month.
Dagmara?
Nothing additional.
And Jessica?
Just 2 events that I wanted to highlight that I attended. I attended a parent webinar hosted by our SROs discussing the digital citizenship content that they're delivering to our middle school students. I have a 7th grader at London, so that's why I was invited. They covered why it's the SROs delivering this curriculum, that this is the first year of this sort of cohesive curriculum, but that they feel the kids are really taking it seriously and they're responding well to it. And they are eventually looking to expand in future years to include the 5th graders, but, you know, baby steps, this is the first year. They're doing it in 3 different sections. They've covered cyberbullying already. The most recent one, I think, was last week, was about online predators. And then the 3rd session that they'll do probably in the next couple of weeks will cover your digital footprint, sexting, dating, things like that. And the SRO stressed to the kids what their expectations are for kids when they're online, but also that they are there as a resource to help students and their families if needed. You know, one thing I really liked that they talked to us about as parents is that they talk to the kids about not fearing consequences at home. If they find themselves in a situation that they didn't expect, they don't know how to handle, they're not expected to know how to handle because they're still little kiddos, sorry guys, but you're little kiddos, that they are there as a resource to work with the students and work with their families if needed. Excellent presentation. We really did well hiring our SROs. They're doing extremely well with stuff like this. And I like that they're reaching out to the parents to show us this is the curriculum we're delivering to your children, further defining what their roles are within our district. And then just this past week, a couple days ago, I attended the Advanced Learner Parent Night, hosted by Dr. Childress, Mr. Lapatino, and Ms. Witt. I have 2 children in the Advanced Language Arts program in the district. Obviously, I'll let them do their presentation, but from the parent side, in a nutshell, we worked in small groups to identify things that we really liked about the Advanced Learner program this year, both the Advanced Language Arts and the math program, and then areas that we thought should be considered for improvement as the program's being further developed for next year. And then we were also given an opportunity to brainstorm ideas for the possibilities of advanced science and social studies curriculums, clubs, other enrichment type activities. Most of the parent comments that were raised were, obviously we want more, we want better for our kids. But as I talked to a couple of the parents, sort of just one-on-one after the meeting, I think most of them generally are very happy with the program as it's developing, recognizing that there's still, more that we can do. And then, one suggestion that I had made that I think probably other parents felt as well was, let's talk to the kids themselves and see what they really liked about this year and what they would like to see out of this program in future years. So thank you again for the opportunity to be a part of that.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, now we have our report from our student representatives. Conley?
So time flies. We have 3 young people who are getting ready to graduate at the end of next month. Got about 5 weeks. How many days before you guys cross the stage? Do you guys know? You guys counting down? Really? Okay. All right. Cool. See how much they enjoy being in 8th grade? Okay. Also, their successors, you were trailblazers, you were the first student reps, your successors will be coming on board at the May board meeting. So you'll be handing off, you'll be here in May and you'll be handing off to the next set of representatives. But so this month, we posed the question of, what's something that they have learned during their time as being the first student representatives for this board. So I will turn it over to whomever wants to go first.
So being one of the first student board representatives, I've learned how to be a lot more collaborative with my fellow peers at my school and ask them questions and really just see how they think the school is. But the biggest thing I've taken away from this is just how the board kind of works. Being somebody that wants to do something like being a teacher when I grew up, I think that it's very cool to see all the little pieces that get put into being a part of a board and just all the things that they put in so schools can be how they are. And that is one of the biggest takeaways I've seen. And then for updates for our school, boys volleyball season at our school has been doing really good and I'm very proud of all of them. Singing in the Rain, our musical, we got to go to BG High School and we got to watch their musical working. And it was a very cool experience just to see how many opportunities and how many more students will be able to be in the musicals at BG. And that's all for our school. It's updates.
Yeah, good evening. So just some of the things I learned as the first student board representative is just being a better leader. Again, what Aaliyah said, a lot of collaboration with my peers and stuff, and just civic engagement. It just really helped me. And just some of the updates. Boys volleyball and track and field season started, and I'm on the team. And what I've seen, we've made a lot of improvement, and hopefully we just get better and better every practice. Our musical, The Little Mermaid, is on April 29th. And 2 weeks ago, we had our ISA testing. So, yeah.
And ISA is which test? Because you guys take a bunch.
Science station.
Science, there you go. Yep.
Good evening. So taking little pieces and fragments from what Mario also said, I believe that at my time here on the board, I have learned a lot about how the board is learning and taking steps and trying things to hear more from the public, so parents and students being able to listen and hear the different opinions that they have before making a choice instead of going in blindly. I also learned more how we work more as a community with other districts, so and working with small businesses with around their area. But more importantly, I believe that this board has helped me gain confidence in public speaking. I remember at the beginning of the year, I still had a little bit more stuttering, and now in this time, I believe I've been able to feel more comfortable and share more and feel more comfortable talking. But overall, I've learned a lot in my time on the board, so I would like to express gratitude to each and every one of you. But overall, our updates for Jack London was our boys volleyball, track and field beginning. Their first meet was on Tuesday. I believe they did very well. Our spring musical, the Seussical, so little pieces of Dr. Seuss's writings, is going to be occurring, and performances are going to be occurring in the next few weeks. So I'm excited to try to see one of the shows, and mainly the 8th grade end of the year activities. So as we're approaching our end of 8th grade, a bunch of activities are going to be happening where we can, like the theater tour, 5th grade tours that are going to come. So being able to help prepare the 5th graders to come, and especially graduation, which is coming up. But overall, there's always stuff to look around. But thank you.
Okay. I personally want to say I've enjoyed watching the three of you grow this year. Yes, first time in front of a mic, you were all nervous, so was I. It was right around the same time, actually. And just watching how the three of you have grown, especially being the groundbreakers, because you had nobody to ask what this was about. Now your successors will be able to look at you at least for a couple of weeks and say, okay, what do I need to do? You know, you guys have been just awesome, and I'm very proud of you.
And I should just note that the application period for the new board reps is actually closing tomorrow. So we have a number of applications that have come in, and so we'll be in touch about interview process and all of those things. But we're in a good position to have your successors sworn in May, in our May board meeting. Yep.
Fantastic. Okay. And I will be asking around to see who would like to, I want to hear how many students we have from each school and everything, and I'll be asking for about interview process to see who would like to do it. Might want to change it up this year. Next is the Staff Communication Superintendent's Report. The first item is the Advanced Learner Program.
Yes, indeed. Also, guys, I know it's a busy night, right? So if you guys need to head out, feel free whenever you need to. We appreciate you being here. Very happy to turn the meeting over to Dr. Chokes and Mr. Lapatino, who are going to update the board on our advanced learner programming.
Good evening. I do have Chris here with me, and he will be stepping up to present on the talented portion. I'm going to take the high achiever portion of the presentation. I do also just want to say, right, Chris and I are just two representatives from a team of people that are all contributing to, right, the teaching and learning in our district, with our literacy director, Amy Breiler, who's here somewhere in the audience, I know, and Carol and Joel, our math director, as well as our specialists and all of our teaching staff that also participate in this. So we're merely representatives sharing some of the work that's been done by a number of different people. This is a visual that probably looks familiar to you, and I just wanted to put it up again, just as a quick review, right? When we're talking about advanced learners, we're talking about our high-achieving students, our talented students, and our gifted students. Much of our work over the last few years has been on making changes to the programming for high achievers. And then this year, right, we've expanded some services to try and identify talented students. Again, Chris will take those pieces, so I won't talk too much about it right now. I also just want to acknowledge Julie Witt, who is our advanced learner specialist. So she is one of our teachers that really helps us move this initiative forward. Again, just a quick review of what we're talking about when we're talking about high achieving programs, right? So we have at our third grade level where we've put some book clubs in place for the students who are showing higher than average test scores, and that's a new piece for this year. We made the change, you may remember, to our 4th and 5th grade high achieving students programming, where previously it was mainly 5th grade students meeting 3 times a week to get some enrichment opportunities, some elevated instruction, and so we expanded that to 4th and expanded it to 5 times a week this year. And then, the math, those students going to the middle school. When we look at our 4th and 5th grade advanced language arts students, we have seen most of the buildings, right, have shown some increase in the number of students that we're servicing with some of those additional learning opportunities. And those students are serviced by the library, media, and enrichment staff. And the table here shows, just a summary of last year compared to this year. So again, most buildings are showing some increases. We would like to continue to see some of those numbers grow, but definitely moving in the right direction in terms of more students being identified for that programming. When you look at the achievement data, right, keeping in mind that part of being able to be eligible for these programs, there's a data profile, right? And so we would expect to see blue and green with our students in the high average and high range achievement levels here. And then again, I put just the district average there for your reference. But again, keeping in mind that we look at multiple data points when we're identifying students from the program, but this is our latest map data from the winter on how just these students in this program are performing. This is one of the pieces that I really was interested to see, because when we were looking at data across the district and looking at different subgroups in previous years, what we were seeing that these students, while they were achieving at high levels, they weren't all meeting their growth targets. These numbers, remember when we're talking about MAP growth, it's a bell curve, right? So 50% is the top of the bell curve. So we always want to shoot to get above that 50% there. We were seeing previously these numbers below that 50th percentile. We still see 4th grade at 44, but that is still better than some of the numbers we had seen previously on how these students were performing in terms of their growth. So again, while they were achieving at high levels, they weren't growing. And we felt that that was partly because we weren't challenging them enough, and hence why we were making some changes to the programs. Any questions about that? Really excited to see that 5th grade at 57%. That's a strong, for MAP growth, that's a strong number. And then looking at our 5th grade math accelerated students, remember this is the programming where these students, these 5th grade students are identified and they go to the middle schools in the morning for their math instruction. And I have they receive their math instruction by our math equity teachers. And those are our 3 math equity teachers at the various buildings. Again, we're seeing most buildings showed some increase in numbers. Of course, we want to see those numbers continue to grow, but definitely most buildings moving in the right direction with more students being identified. And we're getting really good feedback from students as well as those teachers about what's happening, and we can see it in the data as well. So keep in mind that the math percentage to qualify, students who are at the 95th percentile. So it's a higher one, which is why we see that bar, that blue bar higher. So keeping in mind that we would expect to see that because that's part of the qualification process. But when we look here, again, with the growth, we're glad to see that the number is above that 50, at that 55 for fifth grade of students meeting their growth targets. Because similar to what I just explained with language arts, we were concerned that students weren't meeting those growth targets, even though they were high achieving. Any questions about the elementary program before I talk about the middle?
Actually, really quick.
Sure.
For the students that are not meeting their growth targets, do you have the data as to how far off they are from meeting their targets, or is this just generalized?
We would have to look at their individual profiles to see, because all of them have targets. And part of that is just, right, even goal setting, right, with students, which we have some teachers that are doing a really great job with that. So that's just a piece that needs to continue with those students.
I mean, because even if you're only 1 point away, you didn't meet your target. So it's like, is that where we're at with most of our students?
I would have to look back at
Yeah,
individual data.
that was just a rhetorical question.
Yeah, okay.
Beatrice,
Yes, sir.
so you've talked a lot about how we expect to grow, improve the numbers.
Yes, sir.
Do we know where we are today versus where you think we can get to? What is in other words, is there an overall goal in each of the categories that you're looking at? Because you've talked about continuing to grow.
Yeah, I think that we're still kind of new in the programming for me to project out, but I definitely would say that, we would want to see, at least 3 to 5% growth, as we continue to move forward and identify students. I think that we still are seeing some residual pieces with, like if you think about our current 8th grade students were 5th graders when, right, we went into shutdown, coming back out of, being at home and things like that. And so we're still seeing some residual of those things that have impacted students as well. Okay. So when we think about the middle school high achieving programs, again, just a reminder, right? We have the advanced language arts, which is content that is deeper for those students. And then we have the accelerated language arts, which is content that is deeper but also faster paced. And then for math, we have accelerated and we have double accelerated. And I have another visual that actually shows the math sequence a little better, so. These are just some pictures of our students at the middle school level doing some work. You can see, I'll point out there in that picture on the far right, our new furniture, which really has complemented with us trying to increase collaboration in the classrooms. And you can definitely feel the difference when you go to a classroom that doesn't have the new furniture yet, and the ones that do. All of our language arts ones do, unless they're pulling kids into another space. But the new furniture really complements the changes with instruction that we're asking teachers to make. So here, when we look at our advanced and accelerated language arts students, here's where, kind of like I kind of mentioned, where we still see some residual things from students being impacted from, the pandemic. So we're not seeing as high of increases as we would like to see, but we're, working really hard on tweaking some things with the curriculum and supporting our teachers to figure out how we can continue to grow and challenge and have more students have these opportunities to make sure that, again, the program continues to grow and that we're properly identifying students.
Excuse me, Beatrice? Looking at that chart, and I just want to make sure I understand it. For example, it shows at, and I'm just going to pull one example.
Okay.
At London in 7th grade accelerated, there were 20 students in 2020, 22 to 23. Yet when you get to eighth grade accelerated the next year, there's 3 fewer. Are we seeing, is this due to students moving out of the district? Are we removing students from the program? Why are we seeing drops on occasion in these?
Sometimes students make choices to slide back. We look at the data points every year. So it's a constant opportunity for kids to come in. We don't typically pull kids out unless we're seeing some dramatic thing, right? So let's say that, the target is the 85th percentile, and we have somebody who comes in at 83 or even 82. Those aren't kids that we're automatically going to pull out, right? We're going to work with them and try and get them back up. But we do periodically have kids. So like in that example that you just gave, those students could have either slid into the advanced or even gone into the accelerated, because every time we look at the data, they can recalibrate themselves. So it's not a one-to-one situation always.
Specifically with math, would there be a problem with moving students out? For example, does accelerated move farther than advanced, so you wouldn't be able to move them? Or are they just simply going more deeply into the same topic?
Math is different than language arts.
Right.
So I will answer that when I get to that slide, but
thank
it is different than language arts, the sequencing. But the good question though. If I forget to address it, ask it again for me, Bill. Oops. These are our teachers across the district, right, that are teaching the advanced and accelerated programs. And I just wanted to make sure that we, kind of acknowledge them, because every time we make tweaks to our programming, right, somebody's got to implement it, and when we talk with them and we get their ideas, and they're building actually some of the curricula, some of these individuals participate in building those curriculum pieces with us and working with our directors to give the feedback and working with the specialists. But I think it's important that we remember that anytime we make changes, whether it's to the curriculum, the scope and sequence, to resources, somebody's got to implement it. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that they're the ones on the ground that are pushing those pieces forward when we make those changes. So when we look at MAP, again, right, keeping in mind that for achievement, there is a profile that students have to hit to be able to be identified to participate in those programs. And, when you see the advanced versus the accelerated, keep in mind that the threshold is different, right? So the threshold for students to get into advanced is lower than the accelerated, and that's why you see the accelerated with the blue bars higher. It follows a pattern that you would expect to see based on the data profile that's required to get into those programs. And then, so here, when we look at, the growth, so while we're not seeing as many kids as we would like to see yet in the program, this data is very promising, with so many of the grade levels showing well above the 50th percentile. And you see there are even some of them in the 60th in terms of the amount of students making their growth targets. So this is really huge. When we talk about, I presented, I guess it was March, on MTSS, and students, right, when we say that they're tier 3, it's because we're not meeting their needs. We had some students who were high achievers that we weren't meeting their needs. So they were tier 3 for a different reason. This is really promising data to say, now we feel like we're really pushing those kids and they're meeting their growth targets. So they're no longer just high achievers, but we're pushing them further in their learning with the programming that we have in place. Any questions about that data before I talk about math? Okay. So middle school accelerated math, I will tell you these last couple of weeks, Carolyn Droll and I have been doing our math walks. I talked to you again a couple of weeks ago about the literacy walks. We've begun the math walks. And it just has been really fun to just watch and look at all the math instruction and the changes that have taken place with our math instruction. So here are some pictures of our students doing some vertical learning. And so this is, right, a newer thing that Carolyn's been working with our math teachers on through some book study work, but it really emphasizes getting kids out of their seats, working collaboratively to solve problems. they're doing the thinking, right? So it's not so much direct instruction, but they're getting some direct instruction and then going off and doing some thinking to solve the problems. And it's really fun to watch the kids and hear the kids as they're collaborating to solve their problems there. So I wanted to make sure that we shared some of those pictures. Not the same as hearing them, but at least you get to have the visual. So this goes to Mr. Harrison's question in terms of the sequence. So math, like I said, is different in that we have a single accelerated sequence and we have a double accelerated. So essentially, once the students come into the middle school that have been already identified as high achieving students, they go into these accelerated sequence. And after sixth grade is when then they take one or two paths if they've been identified. So they'd either go into the seventh grade accelerated or they would go into Algebra 1. So again, every year, we look at the data again. And so kids could, right, in this scenario, could go into that seventh grade accelerated and then continue to algebra, right? And then the double accelerated goes algebra to geometry. Periodically, we would have students that could possibly jump out of the sequence into a higher track, depending on how their scoring was and what the teachers are seeing with them and their achievement. This, I think, this slide is maybe another way to explain it. So, and not that great for you because of the color coding, so I apologize. We're trying to figure out the best way to depict it.
I could see this one pretty good. We're good.
Okay, great. So the shading indicates the sequence of like a cohort, right? So for example, if we took, for example, the sixth grade accelerated at Cooper at 55, those kiddos in that following, so those were the kids last year, those 55. This year, those students are either in that accelerated or algebra. So again, based on how they test, they can go into one of those two sequences. And that pattern just basically follows. So that's why there's some color coding there to just kind of show you that there's not always a direct line. Depending on students and how they're performing, they could, move into a different course sequence. We want to try and maximize as many kids as we can, getting at least to that algebra level, particularly so that they can have an opportunity at the high school level to hit an AP math type of coursework. And so we're a little bit more laxed at that eighth grade algebra to try and allow more kids to have those opportunities moving forward. Did that answer your question? Okay. Stacy?
So when those decisions are made, I know a lot of times, at least in my own experience, kids sometimes fall on that cusp, right? Where you have to sort of, so tell me how, I know when my kids were in school, there were conversations. I mean, really, Bob's looking at me because I think we had them many times where, sometimes whether it's double accelerator or whatever, where you're looking at both the short-term gain and the long-term gain. So can you kind of explain to me now how, if you've got my guess is that having kids that are kind of right on that border happens kind of a lot, and that becomes a very individualized decision.
Absolutely, right? So we always try and give the kids the benefit of the doubt. We always want to give our students the benefit of the doubt in terms of if they're close. Again, one other thing we might look at is, if typically we look at 3 data points and we're kind of like, we might look at additional data points. We might look at something outside of MAP, look at their common assessment, having conversations with teachers, but most definitely always wanting to give the student the benefit of the doubt to that, to move into a higher level of programming if that's what their desire to do is.
And then as though sometimes those decisions are made either at the end of a school year or at the beginning of the next school year, depending, at least it was a long time ago, but are those conversations then continue, like kids change? And what happens when you have a kid who's right on that border and then, the next school year comes, are there able to be adjustments made as time goes?
Yeah, we're constantly looking at the data points. We've been trying to make those decisions before the school year ends so that we have the teachers there if we need to ask questions and get some feedback from them. But most definitely, again, we're not trying to close the door on kids. We're trying to create as many opportunities as we can for students, but we also do have to have criteria because there is a profile of a student that could be successful, but definitely trying to always give the benefit of the doubt to the student.
Listen, I had a daughter who was right on the borderline of accelerated and double accelerated, and we looked at the whole child. We looked at everything else that was going on, everything else that she was working on, and a very kind, wise man said to me, she's better off in the accelerated versus the double accelerated when you look at the whole child. Now, had I not had really great advice and had this been very individualized, my decision as a mom would have been push, push, push. Whereas I got some amazing guidance where, you know, we tempered those conversations, so it becomes very individualized.
Absolutely, and there's an SEL component to it. We were talking with the parents at the meeting the other night about there is absolutely an SEL component for all of our students, but these students are just like our other students with some of those SEL pieces.
Yeah, which is exactly where I was driving to, so thank you very much.
So Beatrice, I sat on the board the last time we launched this program. This is much more detailed, much more fine-tuned, a lot more information for us. But back then, we did find that certain kids, a handful in every semester, were accelerated beyond the groupings that we had. And what we the staff did, not the board, but resorted to moving those kids and busing them or cabbing them to the high school to take a further advanced class. Usually it was groups of 5 or 6 kids, but they were so accelerated that they were beyond where we are even in this program. Is there a thought to a program like that if you find students at that level?
Actually, we just, maybe about 2 months ago, had a meeting at 214, the assistant superintendents and some of the superintendents about math, actually, particularly. The conversation was about math and the
Right,
math
math,
acceleration.
that's exactly right, yeah.
And so they're actually looking at some modifications for the sequence and profiles of kids. Again, right, there's new state regulations and things like that, and without going into too much detail about that. So they're trying to balance what they can do feasibly, right, within their programming, and also looking at the data of the students coming into that programming.
Yeah.
So right now, yes, there's still lots of conversations happening about, again, the kids of today are not the kids that they were 5 years ago, right?
Right.
Kids are changing and growing. And so it's something that, yeah, we're working with the high school, as
That's
are
great.
all the other feeder districts.
Excellent, yeah.
Absolutely. And then again, right, wanting to acknowledge our teachers that are, on the ground teaching these students in these programs. Again, I can't say it enough. Every time we, have some ideas and make tweaks, and again, a lot of these individuals give their time to help further that curriculum, spend time in the summertime, right, making tweaks to it, making adjustments based on what they're seeing with the needs of students, to make sure that we are continually looking to improve things for our students to best meet their needs. And I think it's important that that they're acknowledged for that, because they really do give a lot of time and attention and thought to, and feedback, right, as we're kicking things around. But it's a collaborative effort when we're developing these changes. So if we look at the data for math, similar to, right, the language arts, where there's a data profile, so you would expect to see, right, lots of green and blue. We definitely would like to see more blue, particularly when we're looking at that 6th grade accelerated and 7th grade accelerated, but also keeping in mind there and at that 8th grade algebra, that's where we kind of are a little bit more lax and open that criteria window a little bit more to try and give more students that opportunity. So that is also, right, that's part of why you're seeing more green bars on that 6th grade accelerated, 7th grade accelerated, and the 8th grade algebra, because we're opening it to a wider profile of student to give them those opportunities. Any questions about that? And so this data, right, is just really exciting to see. Again, when we know that a few years ago, we were seeing that our kids in, at these higher levels weren't meeting growth targets or weren't growing at the rates we wanted them to see these numbers, to see 80% of those students hitting their growth targets. And those are aggressive growth targets that are set through MAP data. So, 59, 65, 80, I mean, those are really promising numbers. And I'm glad to see that, because what that's telling us is that the curriculum and the teaching methods that are being used are truly challenging and stretching those students. And that's what the students want, and that's what their parents want for them, right? We don't want to see them not growing. We want to make sure that they're high achieving, but are they also growing in the program? So very promising data there. Any questions about that? One of the things that we have identified, right, are some, are some discrepancies when we look at gender. So one of the things I did want to put is the column that has the all students. Right now, our student population is heavier male than it is female when we look at our entire student body, right? So we have 53% of our student body is male, while 47% is female. But even taking that into consideration, we're seeing some disparity that we really need to look at and address. So if you look at the 5th grade math, right, 70% male versus 30% female, that's too big of a difference, right? And so those are things that we're going to spend some more time looking at and talking with our teachers about, and looking at more data, right? And then you see the reverse when you look at language arts, right? Again, these are not new patterns or trends. Like, there's been research for as long as I can remember, right? That there's, typically more females when you're talking about the reading instruction or language arts, and higher, percentages of males when you're looking at advanced math pieces. But just because it's been like that historically doesn't mean that we're going to just let it be status quo. We're absolutely going to dig deeper into it. But I thought it was important to share this data as well, as one of the areas that we're targeting for improvement. So in terms of next steps for High Achievers programming, as I already mentioned, right, looking at how we can increase supports and opportunities for more students to take advantage of the programming. I've already talked to you about the gender discrepancy and the work that we're going to be needing to do there. And then I know Ms. Reddick talked a little bit about conducting the focus groups with students, parents, and staff. So we did do a student survey, but it was a survey, right? So what we would like to do is more of a focus group where we're actually engaging with the kids and having those conversations. And we've been kicking around some ideas. What's the easiest way for us to try and do that before the school year ends here? The parent meeting the other night, we had 24 parents, a little bit heavier on the elementary side, but we also did have middle school parents represented. And they gave us some really great feedback, complimentary about a lot of things, and then gave some good ideas as far as some tweaks that could be made. And then again, right, how do we expand so that students who have, some desire to be in some advanced pieces for science or social studies, what are some pieces that we can do? Obviously, right, we have to take into consideration all the moving parts, right? And so I think where we're going to be at this point is more of just gathering that information and then using it to start to plan next year to assess what we can do for the following year. So other than maybe some of the pieces of feedback that were like tweaks that we can do within the current FTE and time constraints that we have, like those pieces that we can do within those constraints, we're absolutely going to look and try and implement as much of it as we can. But anything that would involve, right, additional staffing or some other, more major change, that would be something that we'd have to look at going through a planning phase on. And again, engaging other stakeholders, because we need to engage our staff and some of our administrators in the planning as well. Any questions for me about that? I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who's going to talk to you about our talented programming.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.
For this portion, really going to focus on that talented portion of the Venn diagram and really try and get after what the committee a few years back really tried to define and trying to provide those opportunities beyond and during the school day that we're missing. And so a lot of this work is based on that committee's feedback from both parents, students, as well as staff members. So this first portion, when we talk about the talented program, we're talking about additional options that were available to students. But what we found is to be able to really only service students that have had that experience thus far. So for this example, we're talking through coding. And not every student up to this point at an elementary level has always had access to coding and to programming and things like that. So what we thought was critical in this first juncture was that students were all provided those experiences as that first blanket level so that every student across the board had that experience with coding. So for this year, our STEM staff at the elementary programs, each of those staff members had to actually implemented some new programming in K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 classrooms across the board. It looks so different for a kindergarten class to use B-bots and B programming versus what they were working on with our 4 or 5 program where they were using what's called Edison bots and programming bots moving and rolling around the classroom. To use in other resources like CodeMonkey, we're truly going from block programming and Python, just complex variations of what students can do to make computers and robots do things that they want them to do. So really this first portion, really where staff are introducing those coding ideas through a unit of instruction in all of the STEM classes. And then for next year, what will be, as we follow that group of 5th graders into middle school, trying to find those students that had that talent, had that expertise, and really gravitated towards that talented program. There are some students that you have them do some of the coding experiences and it's not a passion or a love for them. But there are some students that continue working on it at home, continue working on it in every free moment of time. And those are students that really we want to try and find that moment to grow and cultivate that talent. And so that's why in 6th grade and middle school, we'll be providing that as a separate actual class or a separate unit based on the number of students that we find and really try to enrich and support that talented program moving forward. Based on the committee's feedback as well, we looked at not only coding, but we looked at a 3D art experience, knowing that our art staff does an amazing job already across the board, K-8, providing that art programming, but we wanted to focus on doing some different things with 3D constructions in both cardboard as well as clay. So we wanted to make sure that every class had that opportunity to do some of those constructions again through a unit introduction where all students had that exposure and that chance to really work through that programming. So that, again, they could continue that programming moving forward and identify those students that truly have that passion and that talent for identifying 3D and art instruction in that area. And then the other piece that we heard loud and clear was there was photography. And just an interest and a love for those pieces. And so this was actually a new unit that we implemented at the middle school level in 6th grade art. So in that piece, we purchased digital cameras, worked with the art staff to cultivate and create some new units to introduce this because it's a complex skill, it's a complex piece. But again, trying to bring that exposure to 6th grade students, and then again, following that group of students in 7th grade and trying to provide some additional photography opportunities for kids across the board.
Can I just on a personal note, photography is, I think, long overlooked as a part of art. When I was 12, 11, my father used to take family pictures. Nothing extraordinary, but he always had a camera. And on one of our trips east, we used to drive east to see our family. When I was 11 and a half or 12, he gave me a camera. That, for me, and I was never a good artist, but photography was my way to express art. And it has been part of my life ever since. And as everybody around the table knows, I probably take too many pictures even today. But it is, I just love doing family photography, and I think I'm delighted that you're focusing on this because I really do think it's a great art form that's pretty much overlooked. And while it's not necessarily the business it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago because of AI and everything else, it's a great art form. So I'm delighted that you're doing that.
So as we talk about those talented opportunities, part of that really helped to really round this out, to provide a lot of additional opportunities that we didn't have before, were the new talented clubs that were implemented new this year. So across the board, from first grade through eighth grade, we implemented across the board at most of the buildings an engineering, STEM, and robotics club at each of those places. Just so that you're aware, 265 students across the district participated in engineering, 444 kids in STEM, and robotics, 230 students, all with additional experiences either during lunch recess or outside of the school day. And this really helped to cultivate and support just that enriching experience that the kids weren't always necessarily getting. This actually was supported as well by the Marianne Sanford Trust with purchasing materials, helping to pay for some of the stipends for staff to really support this. So it's been a great experience to be able to use all these different resources that are listed up here as part of some of those experiences across the board. And I can't speak enough about the staff listed here that really dug in. For many of them, some of them had not coded with robotics, with doing some of those pieces before, and just jumped in. Over 82 hours of training went into these staff and just helping to prepare them, to support them, to make sure that they were ready in front of students, to make sure that that Spike robot actually moved when you told it to. And that was the challenge, but a great challenge to be able to work with staff and to be able to really support them as well. In addition to that, I just wanted to point out that this is in addition to all the 107 other clubs across our elementary buildings and over 90 at the middle school level. Just to kind of giving you an idea of just all the different opportunities that we are able to provide for students throughout the day.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. You really are doing a tremendous job with the evolution of the clubs across the schools. So thank you and the team for that. I wanted to ask about the balance or the process for determining what's offered during the day, during recess, versus what's offered after school or before school.
That has been probably one of our more unique pieces as we try to figure out what this looks like. As you know, many of our clubs are really run by our own staff. And so some of them aren't always able to facilitate and help support those clubs after school. And so sometimes it's a good fit for that lunchtime recess piece to be able to offer it there. I think what we are looking at moving forward is to see if we can find other outside resources that can help to support additional after-school opportunities. So it's not just leaning on staff to stay late and so forth. So that is a piece of it, but it is built up really much about where we have availability of staff to really be able to support those pieces.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to hear that you guys are exploring other options for supporting those. Thank you.
And I will say, new this year, 3rd and 5th grade in the elementaries, being able to provide some busing for after-school clubs and activities was a new challenge for us this year, but we were able to do that for each of those 3 new clubs. For the ones that did happen after school, able to try and support that. It was a unique piece, but it really helped to open us and provide those opportunities after school. So this last portion, just a brief overview of the robotics, STEM, and engineering, but I'm going to let Gabriel and Andrew close it out from the 4th grade engineering club.
Hey, this is our house, tiny house design. As you can see on the roof, we got solar panels, and this is a little balcony just in case, if you want. And off of here is our design. Firstly, we got our little technology design. We got our 3 cameras just in case, and you can turn these white ones. You can turn them design them. You can turn them either way, but this one is just you can just not. It's just like a normal camera, like a cheap camera. And this one, if you turn this on, is a buzzer. And if you look at that, the buzzer turns on and off. It's kind of like a little fire alarm. And yeah. Over here, we got our fan right here, just in case, if you're hot. And right here, you can see that it turns on like that over here. And now for the last thing, our LED light over here. And then when you turn it on, it goes and then it lights up the place at night. Thank you for watching. Bye.
I just had a quick question, if that's all right, Mr. Lapatino. Of course. We, pre-COVID, were able to offer some additional enrichment opportunities for our music kids, obviously kids that don't have the opportunity to take private lessons. And I know some of our music teachers have expressed we were able in the past to do it through family learning, but that is, by the time sometimes kids get to high school, that's when their true musical talents are, the high school has lots of the ability to pour resources in, but if there's ever an opportunity to circle back, and whether through family learning, whether through, the gifted and talented program, that's been something that, a piece that we've talked about for a long time. And I think one that we made, I think some through donations through, Rich Rosen and through Greg Crocker, we were able to get more kids, more of that one-on-one, especially kids who can't afford it. And maybe over the next year or so, we could take a look at, maybe bringing some of those opportunities back as well.
Of course.
Thank you.
One other quick question, Chris, before you go. These clubs, the robotics, STEM, and engineering, are they linked at all with the Project Lead the Way offerings that we've started in our middle schools?
Not directly necessarily, but I will tell you, when you talk about design and modeling, and when you talk about an engineering lens, this is only going to support and help the app creators course at the middle school level in terms of advancing their programming knowledge before they get there. Those will all be some critical pieces that will only support it moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very good. So as the board knows, we established a transportation committee this year to look at a lot of different subjects. And so I've asked Michael to give us a brief update on where we stand with that committee.
Good evening. We had two meetings since our last board meeting, and we have two more scheduled before we will give out a report to the board. Let me start by saying that as we study issues, we see kind of how this can get into a broader topic so that we can try and make sure that we are servicing the students that need to be serviced, try and hit some targets on truancy or chronic absenteeism, but also looking at how transportation impacts not just busing, but also parking lots and crosswalks. So the committee has really dove into the subject beyond just busing in order to make sure that as we look at who we're going to transport, making sure that those decisions still allow for safe transport of those who won't receive transportation. So as we talked about last month, we are talking about potential paid service pilot next year so that students, families who are less than 1.5 miles and not on a hazardous route may have that opportunity. There's a survey that the communications team is working on that will go out shortly to families so that we can see what the interest is in paid service. We are still exploring the hazardous routes issue and really looking at sitting down with our transportation consultant this summer to identify those roads that we need to do the traffic studies on so that we can do those early next year and bring forward recommendations no later than the late fall, so that way we can make decisions not just on hazardous routes, but also more looking into if we do have the opportunity to pilot the paid ridership, how that impacts transportation. And then we are working based upon the parent feedback on a crosswalk initiative so that there's education not just for our students and not just for our parents, but trying to engage the police and work that with local law enforcement. That's something that the Director of Security has been heavily involved in, brought a program that he had worked with Arlington Heights as well as Lake Zurich on when Lake Zurich implemented it. And then obviously parking lots, looking to see how we go ahead and maximize the safety and the flow of parking lots, knowing that if there are going to be more buses, hopefully that means fewer cars. And one of the other things that the Transportation Committee suggested and that the communications team is working on is a carpool campaign. We are trying to figure out, one of the ideas was to incentivize parents to do it. That's a tough one to try and figure out how to make that happen. It's not like we can just create a carpool lane given the width of our entries into the parking lots. But we think if we can really hit home on carpooling, on crosswalk safety, and then figure out these transportation issues, that we will go ahead and have a successful plan. So for this year, I'm pleased to announce that we will make no changes to the hazardous routes, that we will continue the same bus routes we have this year because we really want to dive into the traffic studies and the paid ridership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, I'm really glad to hear that the hazardous routes are being looked at by the Transportation Committee. I know for years and for decades, we really just sort of accepted that as a routine thing year after year after year. So I'm glad that they're taking a solid look at that this time.
I appreciate that. And just so you know, we are looking at some that may be included now that may not have been in the past. So it's not just, I know everybody heard last year, oh, we're looking at taking away. We're not looking at taking away if we don't have to or the route requires it to remain hazardous, but also looking at the possibility of additional routes so that we ensure the safe transport of students.
Awesome, thank you.
As an aside, I think we have often spoke about the challenges of our parking lots and the challenges of school parking lots and drop off and pick up everywhere. If anybody is a subscriber to the Wall Street Journal, there was an article about that very thing a few days ago, which so there's a bit of shared, commiseration on some of the challenges that exist on that point, so.
Mike, could I just double back for a quick second? I wanted to thank Beatrice and Chris for their presentation. I thought that was the most detailed presentation on student growth that I've seen in my years on this board. And one of the first things I was told by the superintendent when I got on the board a couple of years ago was that we need to challenge our kids more. And I just thought that was a fabulous presentation. I want to thank the two of you for your hard work.
Thank you. Okay, we have now reached the public comment section of our meeting. The board will allow any individual to share a public comment for up to 3 minutes. Such comments should not include the discussion of personnel matters, which should be brought directly to the attention of the appropriate school official. During public comment, the board and administration listen to comments but may not respond to the public. See, we have a couple here. So as I call you up, please state your name. So Samantha Leahy.
Hi, I'm Samantha Leahy, and I have 2 students at Kilmer right now, both in kindergarten and 1st grade. I did attend the meeting earlier this week regarding Kilmer's space issues. Unfortunately, due to the time constraints of the meeting, I was not able to state my concerns or to be able to address what I felt was important during that meeting, so that's why I am here today. And while it was great, I think, to have the meeting, to be able to see that presentation live, if you didn't watch that video, I felt some of the time like that while people were speaking or giving comments or suggestions, that everything was kind of already pre-planned and thought out, and that it wasn't so as collaborative, I think, as a lot of the parents had hoped that it would be. So I think hopefully moving forward, that's something that you guys might be able to address. And one of the ideas that I had for those modular classrooms, I currently am a behavior specialist in a district, and we do have, one of our campuses has one building that does have 2 separate buildings on the same campus. One of the things we did to ensure safety was we did hire a school security officer for that campus specifically to help kind of monitor some of that comings and goings. As we know, kids transition a lot during the day, and so making sure that those kids remained safe while that was being done, as well as making sure that those grounds were safe while that was occurring, was one of my things that I wanted to address during that meeting. And the other thing that I wanted to address during that meeting was it felt like who was going in that classroom was predetermined and already decided. I have a background in special education teaching, and while I firmly believe that all of our kids should have a nice, quiet place to work, my children do not receive, they do receive some pullout, but not necessarily special education services, making sure that those kids that are getting pulled out do receive those services in a nice, quiet location that they're able to concentrate. So while music might be in there, how sure are we that this is soundproof? That these kids that are getting pulled out for these small groups, maybe it be special education or just in order to get some extra help, are they honestly able to hear and concentrate in there? And if it's not soundproof, making sure that we're able to make some sort of modifications for those students to be able to have the best situation for them to really be able to concentrate. I thank you guys for your time, and I really appreciate everybody's hard work here. I know that it's not an easy job, so thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next is Vanetta Leonard.
Can I ask you something before you start the timer? I have prepared a speech that's 4.5 minutes long. Would you give me a courtesy of just finishing, because it's my speech? If not, my son will finish where I left off. What do you guys think?
If we allow it for you, we have to allow it for everyone, so we have to remain in our 3 minutes.
All right. My name is Vanetta Leonard. I'm not sure if detailed introduction is necessary, since I have come in front of this board a couple of times. As a matter of fact, I'm here tonight to address an issue that I have already addressed almost 2 years ago. Back in the summer of 2022, I asked the board if District 21 will participate in a comprehensive sex educational act. I expressed my concern about topics that I and most parents of our community find age inappropriate to be introduced to elementary school kids. I followed up with the administration then. I was provided with a curriculum that the district has been following. I was assured that no changes will be made for the next 2 years. And that seemed to be the case, because I did follow up at the beginning of this school year and nothing in the district health curriculum has changed. I appreciate the honesty of the administration on that. However, Candor, the third-party company that the district pays to provide fifth graders with helpful and, in my opinion, necessary information of puberty and the changes that come with it in both boys and girls, did pivot their language this year and issued the terms person born with male or female reproductive system instead of boys and girls or men and women. So when my fifth grader asked why not use boys and girls, the Candor educator told her that this is the proper science language. Now, thanks to the same science and our state legislator, school districts are required to install feminine hygienic products in boys' bathrooms in elementary school. By the way, I appreciate the district informing us parents on this upgrade of the boys' bathrooms. I don't know if the parents know that the boys got the newer version of the dispensers. They're the electronic ones with cool lights and cool design. It probably makes sense because we have to make sure it appeals to them so they can use them. I understand the district has to obey the law. We all have to. After all, we have elected our representatives to truly represent the values and needs of our community. But here is my dilemma. Our daughter will be going to London Middle School in the fall. She will have to use locker rooms to change in PE uniforms every single day. On top of that, before and after sports activities after school. According to the new law, everyone who self-identifies as a girl can now go and use what we used to call girl-safe places, like bathrooms and locker rooms, and participate in sports of the gender that best identifies them at that particular moment of time. Correct? Or am I mistaken? I need some clarification, please, because at the age of 45, I'm having really hard time navigating the science, and I can only imagine how 11 to 15-year-old will handle it. I'm sure the district has a policy on how to support transgender youth, and I would like that policy to be shared with all parents, especially with middle school parents. I would like some clarification of how is the district going to ensure the safety of the girls within the eradication of the girls' safe places, because I really don't understand what would stop any
Mrs.
boy.
Leonard, your time is up.
Okay.
So now I call up John Leonard.
So first, I'm gonna start off by what my mom had written, and then I'm gonna say a few things after. So because I really don't understand what would stop any boy from self-identifying as a girl right now to go to the girls' bathroom or locker room, we don't have to wait long. It'll take just another TikTok challenge, like the couple we were warned about last school year. Here are some of the examples: kiss someone else's girlfriend, assault a staff member, vandalize bathrooms. I still have the emails from this Netzel warning us about those challenges. I remember myself having to fill up a Google form before going to the bathroom last year and having to use the nurse's bathroom because the boys' bathrooms were closed. Now, are we going to be asking girls to use the nurse's bathrooms because they don't want to share bathrooms with boys? Or maybe we can have a full-time bathroom/locker room supervisors? Are you aware that on average, girls stop participating in sports at the age of 14 because of body issues and having to change in locker rooms in front of other girls? Let's now see how it's going to work if we throw some boys in the picture. Are you aware of the 6th grader from Colorado who was asked to share a bed with a boy during a cross-country overnight trip? I honestly wish we didn't have to worry about those questions, but the science is moving so fast and we better start preparing now. Whether we agree or disagree with the transgender ideology, we all have to live with the consequences of its implementation. It is my mom's duty as a mother to protect the hard-earned rights of women and girls. Let's not forget that while the lie takes the escalator, the truth takes the stairs, and the truth will eventually come out. So that was my mom's speech. Something that I want to add is I think that it's disrespectful and honestly a disgrace to not let my mom finish. This is because she stands up for the rights of women and girls in the district. And I think, just by not allowing her, you all do not appreciate or give the courtesy to the rights of women that might be violated during this new law. So thank you, and hopefully you guys choose to implement this well so that we can continue protecting women's rights that have been earned. Thanks.
You're okay, Mike? Do we have anyone online? And anything in writing? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This month, we did not have any freedom of information requests. Conference and travel expenses for the board to approve in the amount of $39, which are registration fees for the attendance of one board member to the IASB North Cook Division meeting on February 28th. And included in the consent agenda is approving Monday, June 3rd as the last day of school for the 2023-2024 school year. Phil, did you have the opportunity to review the financials?
I did. Pardon me. I did. I had a couple sets of questions of the last run that were responded to appropriately. And I know one of the questions that I had to do with our special ed involvement with NSSEO, number of students and the amount per student that is charged and is paid. And speaking with both Mike and Michael, I understand that we're going to have some additional conversation about that general topic as we go forward. I appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Does anyone need anything pulled? Okay, may I please get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Stacy?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Dagmara?
Yes.
I vote yes. Debbie?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. The next section on the agenda is new business. The first item is the approval of publication of notice for permanent budget transfer. Dr. Connell.
This is just the legal requirement as a result of the fund transfers that you will be taking up, actually, that they took up last month, right?
The Finance Committee heard about it last month.
That's right,
And
yeah.
Phil reported to the board.
Right.
Because of the nature of the transfer, there's a public hearing required from going from the Ed Fund to O&M. And then when we go from O&M into capital projects, there is not a hearing required for that. So that is why this notice is published. Did the same thing last year, just following form.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, may I please get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Phil,
Aye.
Dagmara,
Yes.
I vote yes. Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Harlan,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is the approval of school intercoms and clock system refresh and cabling.
So we have been studying our options for replacing our very aged intercom systems across the district, really viewing that as critical infrastructure for our district. And so Mike and Michael and his team have been, or their teams have been working with vendors. And Mike, if you want to kind of just give us a broad overview, that'd be great.
Yeah, so like Dr. Connolly said, for your approval is the replacement of all intercoms and clocks across the district. They're aging. It's time, right? It's time to look at those. We have some issues with clock syncing and just various issues out there. We're trying to get ahead of a larger issue. There's really no centralized management right now of the current system. I'm seeing reducing quality of clocks and sound, right? So it's time to look at this. So with the process, we engaged, well, actually started in November, we engaged a consultant, Salas O'Brien. They specialize in coming in and also looking at this process of clocks and intercoms in schools. They currently just went through this exact process with District 230 in Orland Park, and now they're working with us. So they really know the manufacturers, the contractors that are involved in this area, and really just provided a lot of great insight throughout the process. It started with a discovery process with them. They literally helped us. We walked every building, every speaker, every clock, every nook and cranny of every school, followed up by some strategy meetings coming out of those. And then with that, we developed a scope and need for the district, and 2 RFPs were issued, one for cabling and then one for the actual intercom and clock systems. With that, following that, we invited back 2 finalists, and we went through a series of meetings with them that involved the presentation of their proposals. We got significant demos of all the products. We get to see it in hand. We actually checked their references, and a lot of just Q&A and follow-up questions were emerging as we got into it. With this being said, we're recommending the CareHawk intercom system and First Security. And then also CRW is the cabling contractor. References checked out great for both. CRW has done a lot of our data cabling over the years, some of our major infrastructure upgrades. They've been a great partner to the district over the years. And overall, just very impressed with the system. You guys wanna? So just a little bit about the system. The clocks, as you'll see, they're larger color displays. This is the only option we saw that actually had a display that was nice and big in color. A lot of them were just the old analog red lettering for the digital. So this was nice, had a lot of flexibility. We have the ability to actually display analog or digital clocks. So if there's educational opportunities where we do want to, go back to that analog piece, we have that ability. These clocks you'll see on the far right there is the classroom. That's a speaker clock combo. All of them have the ability to display any of the emergency alerts that we might, want to, and I'll talk about integrations here pretty soon. So we can do that. They have the ability to display background images and logos. You'll notice there's also built-in strobes on all these too. So, in synchronization with our crisis response and safety response in schools, there's a lot of ability here for these to blend in and really help that front. From the sound and intercom perspective, all new speakers, all new call buttons, all new head ends, way more flexibility with this system. We have the ability to do an all call to one school, or if Dr. Connolly wants to blast out a message from his desk phone, cell phone, computer, he has the ability to send an emergency, whatever the message may be, out to one school, all schools, every room. We also have the ability automated or pre-recorded announcements, sound files. So if we want to blast out schools out for summer on the last day of school, we have the ability to do that. Central management of all of our bell schedules and calendars, which right now is just really tough to to manage with the current system. And then just a really intuitive interface, as you'll see that there's a map of the school, and the school secretary will be able to click on a room and activate a page. Last piece is just really quick, the integrations. This is a huge piece we really pried into in the process. We wanted to make sure that this system really worked well with everything else we have. So with our MyTel our phone system, we have the ability with the all call, as we spoke about. Crisis Go, which is the crisis response app we've been using, full capability to integrate with that. So if we activate an alert within Crisis Go, we have the ability to integrate with intercoms and display the messages on the clocks. Strobes can coincide with the type of alert. Panic buttons in our front office, same thing. We have the ability to display an emergency message. It integrates with our door access systems. We can lock zones of doors, shut doors, and then also our gym AV systems. We have the ability to override that when needed. The plan, as you saw in the proposal, is to install this over 2 summers financially, and then just the feasibility. It's a big project. It's every room, every area of every school, a lot of cabling. It's very intrusive, so it would be to install over 2 summers, 6 schools this first summer, and the remaining buildings next summer. And then just really quick too, I want to give a shout out to the team that helped with this. Danny Malik, our Director of Security, offered some awesome insight throughout this from the security lens. We had Glenn Michelini and Bill Weiss from the operational perspective, and then I had Matt Tanabe and Tyler Locke from the technical lens. We're instrumental in just narrowing this down and getting to this point. So, and that's it. Any questions?
Just one quick one. This is almost a $3.7 million purchase. What would we expect to see the anticipated lifespan of this system?
Yeah,
Is something that's likely to be with us for quite some time?
It is. So the displays, so it should be a 10 to 15 to even longer year system. I mean, obviously, when you start getting that far out, it's hard to say, but it's a long-term, a minimum of 10 years. We should be looking outwards past that, closer to 12 or 15 years especially for the major components. Included with this is a 5-year full parts and labor warranty, so it should last.
Thank you.
Arlen?
Mike, one of the issues we've talked about in the past is the inefficiency of intercoms, walkie-talkies on the playgrounds and reaching emergency responders. Does this change that process? Does this simplify that process?
Yes, it does a little bit. I mean, it streamlines our approach and our crisis response. The just ability to do the all call, to be able to jump into an entire school or multiple schools. It just allows many more options for communication and the crisis response. So yeah, I would say so.
Arlen, if I could point out, we did seriously upgraded the walkie-talkie system 3 years ago. So we do not have those connectivity issues, but that'll be a plus for when they have to call into the office and make any type of all call. But I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that we did upgrade the system.
Yeah, but one of the things we talked about was the inefficiency of having to go call the office and get somebody to pick up to then make another call, as opposed to being able to dial straightly in to 911 or whoever it is we're calling, right? I mean, that was one of the things we talked about.
I'm talking about from outside though, because the people on the playground will have to call in regardless, but the system we have now makes that process seamless, and with the repeater channels we have throughout the district, there is not an issue doing that. We will still then be able to use the system to make that call, whether it's to the building or across the district, but the walkie-talkies are still going to need to be used outside.
No, I understand that.
And then just to add to that, our mobile phones integrate with this as well, so an administrator or principal can activate a voice prompt from their mobile phone as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was getting.
Yeah, so more options we'll have in those scenarios.
Thank you.
Phil?
Yeah, 2 quick things. One, it's typical that you have 1-year warranties. I'm really glad to see and hear that this has got a 5-year warranty on parts and service. The second thing, the security aspect of this is no small feat. It really steps up our security prevention game, and I'm really, really happy that the system is set up to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, may I please get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Dagmara?
Yes.
I vote yes. Debbie?
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. The following item is the approval of the 2024 kitchen renovation project.
As you know, this is a project that we started out over a year ago and trying to get to the table and working with Organic Life. We had brought the idea of an additional production kitchen to go ahead and get better food out in a faster pace. And when we sat down with them, they brought the idea of finishing kitchens, which is something that is starting to take effect in CPS and many other schools, whereby we prepare the food at London, which is our one production kitchen, and then it's sent not in hot boxes where it loses its nutrients, its appeal, its flavor. It's fresh sent to the buildings who have refrigerators and freezers so that the food can be made just in time for the lunch product. So this project is something that we are using National School Lunch Program funds for. It is exceeding those. We have about $2.1 million in National School Lunch Program funds, but the generation of income from the breakfast program and the lunch program will then pay for that additional cost, which is about $800,000. We think that this program far exceeds any cost to the district because it allows for our students who don't get quality meals at home all the time to now have those options at school, both for breakfast, being a hot breakfast, as well as lunch. And I know that the elementary students will really like to hear that the middle school pizza will be available at the elementary schools. So I know parents will be very happy as well, but that'll be phased in. But this project is going to start as soon as school lets out, and we'll be ready to go. And then we will start phasing in these higher options as the school year moves in, so.
Okay, do we have any questions?
Just a quick one. Did Organic Life participate in any of the cost of this or no?
So again, the vast majority of the funds are coming through the National School Lunch
Right,
Program and the surplus that has been in that program. So
The key to it is that they did not, because we want to own the equipment should we ever terminate our relationship with them.
Right.
But based upon their partnership, we anticipate them being with us for a long time.
Right. I know they do a great job. Thank you.
Okay. So may I please get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And I gotta say that the discussions in our house, having a fifth grader and a seventh grader about the middle school pizza, I'm glad that will be resolved, for no other reason. So I vote yes for that alone. Debbie?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Stacy?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Degmara?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I need to go to one of our junior highs for lunch tomorrow. I haven't had the pizza. Or middle school, sorry.
Okay, item D under new business is the approval of the Kilmer Elementary School classroom space and enrollment management plan.
So as a follow-up to the conversation and presentation that the board engaged in at their March board meeting, and as we're bringing tonight a recommendation that the board approve the use of the four classroom modular structure at Kilmer, as well as the implementation of an enrollment management plan, which would include enrollment caps. And again, the caps themselves are kind of a bit of a moving target. It depends on program, it depends on grade level. But again, with the stated goal of those who are Kilmer students that are currently enrolled at Kilmer being able to stay at Kilmer, and only if we hit a particular enrollment level in either a grade level or a program that we are able to cap that, and then new students who might be coming in, if we exceed that cap, would need to enroll in another district school. Obviously not an ideal situation, but something that we do need to put really both measures in place to try and provide some additional breathing room for a school that has seen very rapid student growth for lots of different reasons, geopolitical and other. So the conversation initially was to have the art and music and intervention and resource programs located in the modular. And we've gotten some feedback. We've gotten some, some questions. Again, Mrs. Leahy, noted that. We've had some questions from staff, and I think there's valid conversation and arguments to be had on both sides, right? And the other side being potentially having a grade level occupy that space as opposed to having, specials areas that there are, rotation of students in the building kind of going in and out. So, that's not mission critical for tonight, making those decisions. It's something that we advanced as a kind of a starting point. And as we've gotten that feedback, gotten that conversation, that is not a mission critical decision that needs to be done this evening. I am perfectly willing to continue those conversations. Indeed, I asked Mrs. McBride in her PLC meeting this morning at Kilmer to ask the team leaders to start gathering some additional feedback and ideas. And I'm going to be going over to their next PLC meeting, which I believe is on May 2nd, Kilmer folks. Yes, thank you. May 2nd to engage in that conversation. And so, you are not designating what is going into the modular this evening. All you're doing is approving the use of the modular and then also the enrollment cap concept. You don't have specific caps in front of you, again, because that's a moving target, right? We're going to need to be monitoring enrollment and see, the ins and the outs as it comes through over the summer. So there, Michael does have a little bit of a kind of hot off the press update and some of the logistical challenges that we are going to need to work through to place that structure over on Kilmer. So Michael, if you want to bring them up to speed.
So we initially had a meeting about 3 weeks ago with the village, and we talked logistics of the placement. As you know, the village only has jurisdiction if there's a zoning issue with regards to the modular. The Regional Office of Education does all of the other approvals, permits, requirements. The village wanted a site plan because we talked through that piece of intergovernmental cooperation. I think we're still in that direction. But today we learned through our site engineers that the village is requesting that we go through an amendment to the special use of the school, which potentially is a 6 to 9 week process. I've already asked Dane and other people at the village to have a meeting with us quickly so that we can cut through some of the logistical red tape to make sure that we can get this done for the start of school, because the placement of the unit is set for the end of June, beginning of July. So I don't think that we're in a place that we're in any danger, but it is an unexpected hurdle because the building is on school property and it is a school building. But this is a new wrinkle that they kind of threw at us, which they're probably just dotting their i's and crossing their t's. So we'll have that meeting and report back to you all.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
No, I would just say that nobody around the table has ever said, hey, when can we first get mobile classrooms? But we're dealing with reality, and we're dealing with a tough situation. It's certainly not the ideal, but it's, I think, what we have to do today. So I'll make the motion and appreciate the continued dialogue on what is the best use of those classrooms.
I'll second the motion. It's responsible, as we talked about last month. It's a responsible response for this next year, and it's also cost effective. So
I just
with
have
that, I second it.
a quick question, which is, we've talked a lot about its security. Would it be possible for our new director of school safety and security to come maybe and talk more specifically about, I think, some of the concerns that everybody has on having outdoor classrooms? And the village is gonna have, we're talking about walkways and stuff. There are gonna be some zoning issues and that kind of stuff. Maybe having him come, and he does have a lot of experience. I know he's thrown some good suggestions in and has had some good conversations with municipalities, but I would love to hear from him sort of his thoughts on securing it and making everybody feel more comfortable.
Sure, we'll ask him to come to the May board meeting.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so may I get a roll call vote?
Debbie?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Stacy?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Dagmara?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next is the approval of employment agreements for the Field Elementary School Assistant Principal and the Longfellow Elementary School Assistant Principal.
Yes, we're very excited this evening. We have actually several administrator hires that the board is going to be asked to approve. Starting off with two of our assistant principal vacancies. We're going to begin, and I'll invite Michelle Friedman, our principal at Longfellow, to come up and to introduce our recommended assistant principal, new assistant principal at Longfellow School. So please, yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Friedman. I'm a principal at Longfellow. I don't know how to look at this. Sorry. Hi, everyone. Okay. And I am really excited to introduce Tracy Heitman. She will be our new assistant principal at Longfellow, and she's currently a social worker at the Woodland School, and she has a huge background and expertise in MTSS and building SEL interventions for our students. She has worked with lots of different leaders in developing her leadership capacity to learn curriculum in all different areas. She has a strong background in special education and developing behavior management strategies for our students, emotional regulation, and we are just thrilled to have her as part of our Longfellow family. So welcome aboard.
Thank you, everyone. I'm really excited.
We also have this evening a recommendation for the employment of our new assistant principal at Field Elementary School. Unfortunately, she was unable to join us this evening. She will be coming to the May board meeting so we can formally introduce her, but I'm going to ask Mr. Gurney to give the board some background on the candidate.
Sure. Lauren Thomas is coming to us from Champaign. She's an instructional coach and an elementary teacher down there. She's already come up to Wheeling a number of times for interviews and is really looking forward to helping us in the future. She's really passionate about helping students, and she was really morbid that she wasn't able to make it up tonight, but she's not feeling well. She's hoping to be back in May to be able to stop by and say hi to everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, may I please get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Bill?
Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Stacy?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Dagmara?
Yes.
I vote yes. Debbie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, congratulations and welcome. Okay, the next item under new business is the approval of the employment agreement for our new Kilmer principal.
Yes, very excited to introduce and wholeheartedly recommend Colleen Goodrich to be the next principal at Kilmer Elementary School. Go ahead and stand up if you'd like. Absolutely. So Colleen will be coming to us after having 4 very successful years as an associate principal in North Shore School District 112, the last 2 years being at Wayne Thomas School. And the 2 years prior to that, she did double duty. She was an associate principal in 2 schools, both Wayne Thomas and also Red Oak, where we should note our current principal at Riley came to us from Red Oak. So, you know, we're bringing in the 112 folks and happy to be able to do so. You know, really, Colleen, throughout the entire interview process, just distinguished herself with her level of knowledge of the instructional leadership and of the MTSS process, and just really her background as an instructional coach. She taught in Schaumburg 54 prior to her administrative career. She just really established herself as an extremely knowledgeable, positive, energetic leader that I think will do a fantastic job at Kilmer. Little side note, in terms of accolades, in 2023, Colleen was named the Lake County Assistant Principal of the Year, then was named the Illinois State Assistant Principal of the Year, and then was also named the National Association of Elementary School Principals, NAESP, their Assistant Principal of the Year. So won all 3 levels of the competition. So we are extremely excited to bring her for the board's consideration this evening. So.
Okay.
Welcome. I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Phil? Okay, thank you. Arlen?
Aye.
Stacy?
Yes.
Phil?
Definitely.
Dagmara?
Yes.
Oh, you got to build each time. Yeah. Yes, I vote yes. Debbie?
Absolutely.
And Bill?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Good evening. I need to not wear heels next time. I am so honored and filled with pride to be here standing in front of everyone to step into the principalship for Kilmer Elementary for next year. And throughout the interview process, it was very, very clear that the positive, optimistic culture of not only the district, but Kilmer itself just flowed through everyone and everything I experienced. The commitment to the whole child, to academic success, to collaboration is absolutely something that I was overwhelmingly excited to be interviewing for, and now I get the chance to officially be a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, the next item under new business is the approval of employment agreements for 3 student service coordinators.
Yes, also very excited to bring to you just 3 outstanding internal candidates for our open student service coordinator. So I'm going to turn it over to Kim Klein to introduce.
Okay, so we did interview external candidates as well, right? But these 3 really stood out to the principals and the teachers that were part of the interview committee with us. So I will begin with Jen Foraker. Jen has been in our district for 25 years, primarily at Cooper. But something that really stands out about her during my tenure here is all of the growth that she has done. She has accepted every challenge I have thrown at her, whether she knew she needed it or wanted it at the time. And she's really just stood out in terms of her ability to adapt, to help us grow our department, and the work that she's done as an instructional specialist in the district. I know that her moving into this role as a coordinator, she'll just continue to do amazing things. All right, Alana Lambert is our second candidate. Alana also comes to us via Cooper and has been in the district for 20 years. You know, as Alana was going through the last 5 years of COVID, you know, we were able to ask her to step into some of those tough roles of moving to the elementary level to get different experiences, to move buildings during COVID when we had to make some shifts. She spent time as an instructional specialist coach at the time at Frost, where she really honed her skills with that Tier 1 instruction, and has been an instructional specialist with the team for a couple of years. So again, really happy to bring her to this next level and excited for what she's going to do. And then our last candidate is Melissa Mariconda. I should say last but not least. Right, so Melissa first came into the district as we were working on growing our continuum of services, right? Again, very thankful to work for a board that understood very early on in my time here that we needed to make some changes for students. It's often really difficult to find someone mid-year who can come in and help institute and make those changes. And so Melissa started as our first academic instructional teacher in the district when it was still at Tarkington. She spent a couple years in that role while she was working on her administrative license and has been the assistant principal at Riley. So again, we're working really closely with our life skills and academic instructional programs as well as the whole building. And so excited to see what she's going to do as she moves into this next administrative role.
Okay, may I please get a motion to approve the employment agreements?
So moved.
Stacy? Yes. Phil?
Aye.
Degmara?
Yes.
I vote yes. Debbie?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, congratulations. Okay, the last item under new business is the ratification of superintendent appointments to the District 21 School-Based Health Center Advisory Board.
It's a mouthful, right? So as the board knows, one of the requirements of the law is that we establish in order to open our school-based health center, that we establish an advisory board. And so over the last several weeks, I've had the really great opportunity to review over 40 applications that came from within our parent community who were interested in being parent representatives or representatives at large onto the advisory board. And that's in addition to the members of our administration and staff that will be serving on the advisory board as well. I can tell you that you know, I think you always kind of assume that you have a lot of folks in the healthcare industry because, you know, it's a big industry, right? There's a lot of different facets of it. But I have to say, I mean, I think probably 35 of the 40 applications we received were healthcare professionals that are parents in our district. And it was a really tough, you know, call to be able to kind of, you know, match up what looked to be some great skill sets. But I think we've gotten there, and I think we've got a really, really strong advisory group. And so I'm asking that the board ratify my appointments of the following individuals. Kim Klein as a member of our administration, Michael DiBartolo, Olivia Aguado, who is our community health liaison in the district, Lauren Schmidt, who is one of our social workers and also our McKinney-Vento homeless liaison, Bailey Hack, who is one of our certified school nurses, Erica Slack, who is the nurse practitioner who has been employed by Advocate to be operating the clinic on a daily basis, Susan Pritzker, who is a community member and a retired school nurse, Miriam Diaz, who is a doctor of nurse practice and is a parent representative from the Holmes strand, Suna Kim, who is a pediatric nurse practitioner and will be the parent representative from the London strand, Anna Grinberg, who is a clinical pharmacist, trilingual, speaks Russian, English, and conversational Spanish, and will be the parent representative from the Cooper strand. Jennifer Tani, who is a former board member and is CEO of Healthy Schools Campaign, will be serving as one of our at-large parent representatives. Jenny Keller, who is a licensed clinical professional counselor, will also be serving as an at-large parent representative. And then finally, Roy Eierman, who is he director of? Clinical director at Omni Youth Services, who obviously we work extremely closely with for provision of mental health and counseling services for our students. So very excited to form this group and would ask for your ratification.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second, and it looks like a marvelous group, Mike. Thank you.
Roll call.
Phil?
Aye.
Degmara?
Yes.
I vote yes. Debbie?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Arlen?
Aye.
Stacy?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Congratulations. And next item is our next regular board meeting of this Board of Education is scheduled for Thursday, May 16th, 2024. So may I please get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Debbie?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Sorry. I vote yes. Stacy?
Yes.
Arlen?
Aye.
Degmara?
Yes.
And Phil?
Aye.
Motion carries.